Hi there, I'm Paul Mitchell, leadership coach, author and founder of The Human Enterprise. Welcome to Leading in Lockdown. Now I realise you may not necessarily be in full lockdown, but all of us are going through a form of isolation or self-isolation in some way. So this particular episode is called The Meaning of Life. I'm going to talk about how you can make meaning out of this particular trauma that we're now all going through. In past episodes, we've talked about grief, we've talked about hugs of hope, we've talked about how we tend to repress emotions and how something like this can bring up those emotions from the past. But in this particular video, I'm going to talk about how do you really come to sense with what's going on and make it meaningful and make meaning of it. Now, in a previous episode, I've talked about the stages of grief that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross takes us through. What people may not be aware of is that one of her colleagues, David Kessler, believed there was a sixth stage rather than just 5 stages, and that stage was meaning. That the people that really come through grief move into a stage of meaning, and it's the meaning that keeps them alive. It's the meaning that keeps them going. In fact, the same concept was shared years ago in a wonderful book, a book of horror and a book of hope called Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankl. Dr. Frankl was a survivor, a psychiatrist and a survivor in the Holocaust in a concentration camp. And what he found was that the people that ultimately survived all had one thing in common. They had something to live for. They had some meaning way beyond the horror of the concentration camp. Now, I'm not saying that what we're experiencing is in any way comparative to the horror and the hell of a concentration camp. What I am saying and what I would love you to do is to get some meaning, to derive some meaning from the current crisis that we are going through. And to do that, I want to give you 3 tools or ideas that I think will help bring more meaning into this situation and more meaning into your life. The first technique or idea is a mindset of meaning. Not denial, not rah, 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 but a mindset of meaning, changing some of the words that you're talking about. So rather than thinking, well, we're in chaos, how can you go to calm? Rather than thinking we're in panic, how can you go to prosperity? It may not be financial prosperity, there's other forms of prosperity as well. Rather than thinking, oh, this is all about contraction, how can you go into expansion of yourself in terms of other things apart from business? Rather than thinking, oh my God, I'm a victim here, how can you go from victim to no, there's some victories I can get from this, however small they are. And finally, and this is the most important, rather than feeling helpless, how do you go to helpful? Because it's when you go to helpful that you'll derive most meaning. So I want you to think about, in your world right now, who could you be most helpful to? Who could you reach out to and really feel, hey, they need my help, I'm being helpful to help you derive more meaning. So the second technique is, how can you make this pandemic mean something to you when you look back at it from the future? Now, and you've got a choice now. You can say, oh, I can remember it because that's the time we all watched Tiger King. Well, that's great, but I'd love it to mean more than that to you. I guarantee you've been putting off stuff. For me, I'd love to learn guitar, but I've been putting it off, not enough time. I'd love to probably be more flexible and learn yoga, but I've been putting off, not enough time. I love to learn to sing better, and you can certainly get voice lessons online. Let's look back at this time, and I want you to look back on this time and say, that's the time I learned guitar or got better at guitar. That's the time I learned to do yoga. What is this going to mean to you years from now? You know, to me, it's going to mean a lot more than what they used to call me when I played rugby. They used to call me Gunner Mitchell, a horrific title, because I was gonna pass the ball and I was gonna tackle and I was going to kick someone. And I've been gonna play my guitar back here. But this time, I am going to play the guitar. I'm going to look back at this time and really make it mean something. And the third technique or idea, particularly if you're a leader, is to make this pandemic have a sense of meaning. Well, now, what do I mean by that? If you have a look at any great business, it normally has a higher purpose. It's normally doing something way beyond the numbers. Maybe you don't have control over the numbers now, but you can still have a sense of meaning in your team. You can talk to your team about how do we stick together through this? How do we keep supporting each other? Who are some of the clients or some of the people in our community that really need help? So we have a sense of meaning, and that sense of meaning will bind us together. And it may not just be with your team, it may be even with your family. So there's three things to do with meaning. First of all, a mindset of meaning, very, very important to get the right mindset. Secondly, it's actually make this corona virus, this pandemic, mean something when you look back on it. And the third thing is introduce or reinforce or reward or recognize or re-energize that sense of meaning within your own organization, that sense of higher purpose. Hope these ideas have helped. We've got one more episode to go. I hope to see you there. Hope you're giving lots and lots of hugs of hope. And remember, find the passion, develop the skills, make the numbers, make a difference, and keep safe.